happy Wax On Wednesdays. I am changing it up here just, well, actually a lot of bit this week and doing something radically different. You can see I have a regular canvas, stretched canvas. This is like a 1.5 inch 8x8, and normally, of course, I'm working on wood and wood panels and cradle board, but this week I thought it would be fun to work with acrylics. Acrylics are something that a medium that doesn't play nicely with encaustic, so the two never seem to cross paths in any way. And as a result, I'm usually always working with encaustic, oils, oil-based products, basically any medium, watercolors, any medium except for acrylic that you'll see me working on in the studio. So this is just working with something completely different, but I thought it would be a lot of fun. Miss Reagan has been wanting to work with the acrylic pour, and so we've been doing some of those here at the home studio. And so I'll just show you really quickly just a couple of them that we've been working with. This one we did a few days ago, and this one actually has the first coat of resin. I'm kind of playing around with the finishes that I want on these, and this has just a single coat of resin. So before this is finished, I'm going to add another coat all over to make it a little bit more dimensional, the depth a little better, and then of course fill in any missing areas there on the side that got missed. So I'm going to do another at least one all over coat of resin, but you can see it has a little bit of depth there, and that is kind of a cool effect on that one. And then I have one to show you with this has no finish on it whatsoever. And this is just the straight pour. And I really like this look too, so I'm just kind of playing around with different finishes at this point on several of the canvases before I go super large. And so this one I'm not quite decided what I'm going to do with yet, but I love all the different cells in there and the little mix of gold. So this one, we're going to do one that's similar to this today, and I have another 8x8 canvas, and I'm going to list all the supplies that I use on the blog, and pretty pictures with links and everything of where I found them. These products I'm using, I noticed a lot of artists use the really thin canvas for this because the sides, I'm kind of playing with the sides on how to do the sides best, and I noticed a lot of artists like to use the really thin, about half this thickness of canvas, and maybe that works better. I do like the deep canvas is probably just out of habit from working with the deep cradle boards. I like the gallery wrapped, the really nice gallery wrapped canvases, and so I'm kind of playing around with how to do the edges on those, and that's what I'm using. Also, I'll be using an acrylic pouring medium, and this one is a Liquitex pouring medium, and some paper cups, and then some acrylic paints, and I use a variety. I think today I have mostly Winsor Newton and Golden, and it's pretty much whatever I had laying around in the way of acrylic paints. I just keep I keep a stash at home for when I can't get into the studio, so I can still paint. And yes, I do have tons of whole room full of canvases, but they're more for my home painting as opposed to my studio work, which is encaustic, both hot and cold wax. So I have some gold, some iridescent gold deep, and some ultramarine blue, and the golden, and also a little bit of teal. And I have some Windsor blue. Not sure if I'm going to use all these, but some cerulean blue, some white, and some black. And I think this is the only one that's not Windsor or golden. It's Liquitex. The ones that work the best I found for this are the more fluid acrylics, and these are all fluid acrylics. The ones in the tube are more heavy body, and you can still water them down, and I find that they work just fine watered down. I just use a little bit more pouring medium and a little bit more water for them, and it all works out fine. It's just a little bit more stirring. So the other supplies I'll explain as I go, and don't forget to look on the blog where I'll have pictures of everything that I'm using today. So the only other thing is that I've taken some push pins and pushed them in the four corners of the canvas there, so it's sitting up off of the cookie sheet and the bottom doesn't get a bunch of messy pool of paint on it. So I'm just sitting it lightly up and making sure that it's nice and level. I've also covered my entire surface because, of course, this is a really messy process. I never do anything unless it's completely messy and fun. And probably what got me so intrigued about these acrylic pours is look at all the wonderful, fabulous mess that you can make. So let's get started. And I think that's why I was so drawn to the acrylic pour to begin with, is I was seeing artists do such a wide range of techniques. There was no right or wrong way to do it, and they just had fun with just so many different approaches to the acrylic pour with some fabulous results. And I just found that really freeing and intriguing, similar to encaustic. So and it has a look almost of very similar to a shellac burn. So that was probably what first attracted me to the approach in the first place. And also that there's just so many ways that you can, there's so many ways that you can approach this method. And there really is no right or wrong. It's all exploration and investigating and just kind of playing with it and finding out what works. Very similar to encaustic. So I've had a lot of fun working with this method, and I just wanted to share it with you. So I'm going to take, I've decided on a few colors here, and this is the teal golden, and I'm just going to add equal parts of pouring medium to, this is the Windsor blue and the Windsor Newton. I'm just going to add equal parts of pouring medium to paint. And this is just some of the white. This is some of the Liquitex white, some of the Windsor Newton Mars black, and then I think I'm going to add some of the golden iridescent gold deep, and just a little bit of that too. I might not add this in the pour. I might add it as kind of an afterthought, because I have found that it kind of shows up a little bit better if I add some afterwards. And like I said, this is all experimenting and play and discovery. So I'm just going to start by mixing these all up with the pouring medium. The really heavy-bodied paints I find kind of curdle, if you will, when you start mixing in the pouring medium and the water. They might curdle at first, but don't let that throw you off. The more liquid that you add, the more they will become smooth and creamy in consistency. Okay, so now I'm going to begin to add water into my mixes to get them the consistency that I want for the pouring. And this can be a time-consuming job, and to mix up a bunch of colors together can take quite some time. It's probably the most time-consuming part of the pour, is getting them the right consistency and just adding the water just a little bit at a time. And for this I have a little plastic pipette. I just add in a little bit of water, a few drips at a time. And I'm not going to show you the whole entire thing with all the colors just for time's sake, but I will show you the consistency that I want to get. And when I'm holding it up with my stir stick, what I want is a steady stream flowing down from my stir stick. Okay, so I switched to the bigger sort of tongue depressor size stir stick so I can maybe show you better on the camera how I want the consistency of that paint. And I want that steady, runny drip. That's the consistency that I want the paint at. Okay, so I switched to the bigger sort of tongue depressor size stir stick so I can maybe show you better on the camera how I want the consistency of that paint. And I want that steady, runny drip. That's the consistency that I want the paint at. So I have all of my colors mixed up and they are ready to go. It did take some time to gradually add in that water and get them to the consistency that I wanted. And I'm going to go ahead and do what's called a dirty pour. And I'm going to take a cup and start to add in color on top of color on top of color. Oh, and before I do that, one more supply I am using, and once again, there are so many different ways that you can achieve those cells like I showed you in the blue and black piece. There's multiple different ways that you can get those cells. I found that this result has been working really well for me, so that's what I'm showing you today, but this is not by any means the end that you have to do it the way that I am doing it. There's multiple ways in which to achieve these cells. So kind of play around, explore, and look around at the different ways that, that this can be achieved. But I am using CRC heavy duty silicone. This is a silicone lubricant. And I'm just using a tiny, tiny, tiny bit in not all the colors, just a couple of the colors, and has a little spray nozzle there. Plug it in, and I'm just using just a tiny, tiny little bit. And in the background here, if you hear that, that is my #1 studio buddy. That is his older and much larger friend, since we are at the home studio today, and he is currently snoring. So he's a little bit older and he snores very loud. So if you hear something in the background, that's who it is. And the funny part about that is after 14 online workshops, they are both completely unaffected by my talking to myself all day long into the camera. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and start this with start with the blue. And I stir each one before I pour it in, just to make sure that I've got it at that consistency that I want. I'm going to go ahead and pour it just a little bit. And hopefully I've made up enough paint here for this 8x8 canvas. Pour some white, and let's see. I think in the black I'm going to put a squirt of the silicone. So I'm just gonna, done. That's all I'm gonna put in. And this is a good idea to do this outside. It does have a, does have fumes to it. You don't want to breathe it, and probably a good idea to go outside and give that a spray. And let's see, maybe I'll give some of the light blue a spray as well. Just a little dab will do you on that. Add some of that, and I'll add some of the black. You can see all that pretty color going on in there. And I will add a little bit of the gold. I'll give that a little spray as well, just a little. See what happens. I'll probably end up adding the gold both before and after. And another thing is to pour it really high. It also creates that variation, those cells and textures to create it. Pour it very high from the cup. Believe it or not, that'll also give you a different effect. And I don't know if the science of that is that it's creating air by coming down, by pouring it at a higher level. I'm assuming that that's what it is. My common sense is telling me, but I'm not completely sure, but I'm assuming that it's adding an air. Let's add some more of the dark blue. And no matter how I add this, don't worry about how they look in the cup, or if you don't see some of the colors once you pour it in, because the heavier density colors that have more opaqueness to them and more density are automatically going to go to the bottom of the cup. So don't let that throw you off either. And in this case, it's the white that's the most dense, so it's going to sink right to the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to leave some of the colors in the cups. I'm not going to use the entire thing, just in case I need some to fill in with. I'll have them on hand. It feels like this is a good place to start with the color for this 8x8. And I am just going to take some of the white paint and just go over the sides a little bit. I'm not going to be neat about it. I just want to see if that will help. And it doesn't matter if color gets on it from my gloves, because color is going to pour over it anyways in a very random fashion. So that really, it just doesn't matter at all. I just want some color on the sides to see a little experiment to see if that helps with the paint dripping a little more evenly around the sides without having to help it quite so much. I want a continuous, beautiful pattern continued, the same pattern that's on the front of the canvas continued onto the side of the canvas. Some on the corners as well. It's a little bit hard to get them on the corners. There, I'm just going to get the places that it's a little bit difficult to get it to run smoothly. I'm going to put some paint there and see if that helps a little bit. Okay. So you can see all the beautiful paint in there. I haven't stirred it at all. I'm not going to stir it. Instead, I'm going to put the cup on top of the canvas, on top of the cup rather, and flip it over. And lift up. And you can see there's a lot going on there. And I love the way it looks just even right now. If I could stop right there, I think I would, but we've got to make it move and make it go all over the canvas and down on the sides before it drips on its own, because we want it to drip where we want it to drip. And trying to be the master of our own as much as we can, as much as I can. And this is going to change several times before I'm done. So if you get real attached to things quite quickly, then this is going to be a little bit of a fun challenge for you, because at several different places you'll want to say no, don't go any farther, that's where I want it, and you have to continue to get it over to the sides. And that actually worked out pretty well. I like the way there's just a little bit right there, and sometimes if you just help it with your finger to get it wet, then it'll go ahead and run over. You can just dab it just a bit. And I really like painting the sides. Worked out well in getting coverage on that side. Now, the other thing that I found is that when I spray the silicone in it, that causes the cells, which are beautiful, it also causes the paint to separate a little bit on the sides. So that's another thing that I've been working with as well, to try to alleviate that a little bit. And it might just be a matter of spraying less silicone in, and just a little dab will do you. But I just love the top so much that I can't help myself. So I really like this right where it's at. I might want a little bit of gold to add some gold in, but I'm going to change my gloves so they're just a little bit cleaner, and I can work with some detail in the piece. So this is a project where you'll want to wear gloves, and isn't it funny? I forget to wear gloves when I'm working in encaustic. Half the time I forget to put them on, and oils when I really should be wearing those gloves. And for some reason I forget, but I do not like acrylic paint on my hands. I don't know why, but I like the feeling, and I can have wax, all over my person all day, and it doesn't seem to bother me. but the acrylic paint I really don't like. So I remember to wear my gloves, or the invisible gloves solution, the invisible gloves lotion. That is a good alternative too. I'm going to take some of this gold, and this is a point where you might say I just don't want to touch it anymore. I just want it exactly how it is. But of course, and that's how Miss Reagan is. She gets to a certain point and she says, I don't want to touch it. I like it just like that. And I'm always see what it's going to do next. And of course, if you are going to do something, now is the time. And I can take a needle even and sort of play with this. Play with them a little bit. Draw it out a little bit. I really like it quite natural, the way it's poured. So if I feel like oh, that's pretty. But if I feel like I've overworked it to where it looks like I've actually done it by hand, which really I don't want that look. I want it to look very organic and natural, and like I've had no hand in manipulating this whatsoever, that it kind of just grew this way, if you will. So I'm going to, and you can take, if you don't want to get your gloves dirty again, you can take two tongue depressors and just lift it a little bit and watch that move. So if you've manipulated your piece a little bit and it looks a little bit too hand wrought, then just tip it. Tip it and see what happens. And you find you can tip it any way you want. So I may give this a completely different look here. That's okay. So you can see I can completely change the composition of this piece multiple times by just tipping the canvas. And you can see about a dozen different paintings in this as you're tipping it and letting it go. You can watch it change, a dozen times before you decide that it's done. Okay, and another thing that I noticed is the more that you manipulate the painting and the more that you do let it run off. I still have some wonderful cells here and all through here. Some wonderful little cell pockets, but not quite as many as when I started with the first large circles. and tilting it around does disperse them a little bit. And of course I've rolled those initial circles off the side. And another wonderful thing about these pours is that they can come out completely differently each time, even using the same color palette. So for instance, for this one, I used the exact same color palette that I used here, just in a different, slightly different sequence. This one obviously had more of the ultramarine blue in it, and this one had maybe more white and more of the cerulean blue dominant, but each one, just depending on the pour and how you manipulate the canvas, the exact same colors can come out just really completely differently just with how you manipulate it. Okay, so I am going to stop fiddling around with this one and call it done. It's getting a little thick. To dry, it does take several hours, and I probably wouldn't put a finish on it for 24 hours. I would let it dry down into the canvas. You can see from the one that doesn't have a finish on it that it does seep right down into the canvas, and you can of course still feel the canvas and everything, so it completely saturates the canvas when it dries. And I hope you enjoyed this little bit of just a little bit of a twist, a little bit of a change up. So this is a pretty magical process for abstract painting, and if you love abstract painting and intuitive painting, then I think that you're really going to get a charge out of this week's project. So also, if you guys are looking for a full workshop, full-fledged workshop, I have 14 online workshops that are available in my Etsy shop and also on the blog, and they range from encaustic to also metal. There are 3 full workshops of encaustic in the Encausticology series, and all 3 of them are over 10 hours long in video content, and all the workshops you have available to you 24/7 with lifetime access and no time limits or expiration dates after you purchase them. So if you'd like to join me for a full workshop, you can jump in and join those at any time. And you can also catch up with me anytime on the blog. Leave a comment here on the YouTube channel. I always stay home from the studio on Wednesdays just to answer your comments and your questions, and hope you guys have fun. And please like and subscribe to the channel. See you next week.